Thanks a lot, Pete. And I really appreciate you guys and girls coming today. I know, I was in college too, and I know you got other things that you would rather be doing, but I really appreciate you guys coming. It's an absolute honor for me to be here in front of you tonight. I am going to talk to you about my story, what I've been through, and what I've learned in my life, and hopefully you guys can get something out of it. I don't consider myself a motivational speaker where I come and I, get in your face and I give you a big pep talk and that kind of stuff. I just kind of want to tell you what I've been through, and I hope that you can get something out of it. As Pete said, my name is Rod Cate. I'm 53 years old. When I was 15 years old, back in 1981, I broke my neck playing high school football. And afterwards, I was paralyzed from the neck down. I went to a high school in North Carolina called Sal Stokes. And back then, we had, before the football season started, we had what was known as football camp, where we lived in the high school for a week. And we practiced 3 times a day. We had full pads in the morning and in the evening, and we did special teams at lunchtime. On Friday, when camp broke, that's when we had our inter-squad scrimmage. It was in front of the whole town, the big lights, the nice carpet field. I'd never played on something that big in my life, and to be honest, I was pretty jacked up. I was a pretty good athlete back then. Actually, only 2 of us made the varsity, and I was one of them. I was a rising sophomore. Our high school was sophomore, junior, senior. And so I was the starting free safety already, and I was probably going to be the starting quarterback before the season started. So we start our inter-squad scrimmage. The defense is on the field first, and I'm playing free safety, and a play develops in front of me, and I see it's going to be a pass across the middle. I see that I can't intercept the ball, but so I'm going to hit this guy as hard as I can to make sure that he doesn't catch it. And just to back up a second, so I'm 15 years old. I'm maybe 6 feet tall and weigh about 150, 155. The kid I hit was 6'3", weighed 260, and played football at Wake Forest as an offensive guard later on. But anyway, I was successful in that I hit the guy hard enough where he dropped the ball. He got up. Unfortunately, I didn't. When I hit the guy, my helmet, I lowered my head too much, and my helmet caught him right in the thigh. I shattered 2 vertebrae in my neck and severely damaged my spinal cord. After I hit, I spun around and was laying flat down, face down, my head kind of to the side. And I remember my arms were like this, and I looked over at my right arm because my head was turning that way, and I knew it was my arm, but it really, it didn't feel like my arm. My brother, who was playing cornerback, he was a year older than me, came over and said, "Hey man, come on, get up." And I kind of made that feeling of trying to get up, and I remember looking at my arm, and it just rolled over like it was dead. I couldn't feel it roll over. I guess there must have been some nerves left in there, but that was it. And so that night, they took me down to Winston-Salem, which was about 30 minutes from where we lived. They did surgery on my neck. They put a bunch of metal, fused my 4th and 5th cervical vertebrae. Of course, I have no feeling, no movement. So I'm in the hospital in Winston-Salem. About 3 weeks go by, still no movement, no feeling. The spinal cord, part of the damage was that, it was damaged, but it was swollen. And so what they do for swelling is they give steroids. And so I was on a massive dose of steroids. And so as the swelling in my spinal cord went down, I finally was able to move. And the first thing I was able to move, I was lying in the bed. I looked down at my feet, and I just kind of made this, feeling in my head, all right, try to push your foot down. And when I did that, the small toe left right beside my pinky toe on my left foot actually moved like that. And so, I thought, hey, this is pretty good. This is a good start. And then about within the next week, I began to have a little bit of movement everywhere. Interesting, the last thing that I was able to move were my hands and fingers. I'm not sure why my feet began to move before my hands and fingers, but that's what happened. Along with this dose of steroids, though, it made my face break out with this horrendous acne, which itched like you wouldn't believe. And before I could move my hands, I couldn't itch it. And I can tell you, just looking back, that's one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my life, was having your face horribly itch and not be able to scratch it. But anyway, so some feeling came back, some movement came back, so they shipped me across town to a rehab center. And there I started with physical therapy, occupational therapy, trying to get my hands working. You know, after about a month or so, they actually got me up. First time I was up. They put me in these big leg braces, you know, got me between two parallel bars. My right side was stronger, could move better than my left. And so it was time for me to try to take a step. And to be able to do that, they gave me a boot with a big old, you know, build-up on it to put on my right foot, because I couldn't lift my left leg to swing it through. So I was able to take my first steps in between those parallel bars. It was only a few steps, but you know, that was, I knew then that the recovery, it was going to happen. So I was in the rehab center for about 2.5 months. Finally, I get discharged. And so the day of my discharge, I walk out of the rehab hospital with two forearm crutches. You guys have probably seen those. I have a neck brace and forearm crutches. My mom brings the car around. I walk down the hall and I get in the car and I go home. You know, there was no celebration, no party. You know, it's kind of anticlimactic. You've been, you know, in a hospital or a rehab facility for 3.5 months, and you know, you just kind of, you get in the car and you go by McDonald's and get a cheeseburger and you go home. But it really set the tone. By not making a big deal out of that, the tone was set in that, okay, you finished this part of your life, it's time to plug back in, it's time to get going again. And that's what I did. My first